Welcome back to part 3 of Get Hooked on Phonics. In this part, we will be talking about some approaches to teaching phonics. So, how do we go about teaching letter-sound associations? As you can see, there are similarities with both approaches. They both start by developing an awareness of the target sound. They both involve some type of segmenting to isolate the sound. Both use some type of association with a picture or word to help anchor that sound and symbol together. And both use some type of reading and spelling activity. Taking a closer look at the first, it uses a bottom-up approach in that it starts with the smallest unit, single sounds first, and links them to their graphemes. Instruction might look like this. The teacher might introduce the B sound and ask children to give a thumbs up or down if they hear it in a set of words such as bugs, bag, badminton, rub, robe, etc. Next, you might ask the children to tell if the B sound is in the beginning, middle, or end of a set of words such as in bottle, rubbish, tumble, robot, and stub. The teacher will also introduce the letter that makes that sound and a cue card to help students remember that sound. For example, in the Open Court program, students are shown the picture of a bouncing ball and coached to associate the sound of the ball bouncing against the ground, b -b -b -b, as well as in the words bouncing ball with the letter symbol B. Next, students will begin to read words with the letter B by blending the known sounds of other letters with their new letter sound. This is usually a letter-by-letter blending task. Depending on other known sounds, they might blend words like cab, or bat, or rib, etc., and then from there read simple sentences. Last, they might also do a word dictation task on whiteboards or with pencil and paper, with a word where a word is dictated, and they write it with their teacher support as needed. This is a highly synthetic or blending approach. Option B is more analytical in nature and more of a top-down approach in that it starts with known words. In this case, several written words might be presented and read for the students such as bus, bat, and big. Students identify what letter and sound is the same. Then additional words are presented and students use their phonemic awareness skills to segment the words and listen for the target sound. Again, a picture might be used to help build the sound-symbol association. This might also include written words as well with the target letter sound. Students see and read words with the target sound in sentences and spell words containing the target letter sound. Every program seems to have a slightly different sequence for introducing letter sounds. Most programs begin with introducing a few consonant letters that have high utility and a short vowel sound, such as A. Students are encouraged to start manipulating letter sounds and blending them as soon as possible. With just 6 sounds, they can read and spell words like at, am, as, mat and sat, pat, Pam, ham, hat, has, map, etc. Given a few sight words, they can begin reading sentences such as, Pam sat on the mat. It is important for children to see letter sounds in words and in connected text as early as possible so they can build an understanding of the true purpose of reading. It is not necessary for students to learn all the letters and sounds first for the entire alphabet. Most good programs will introduce blending or reading words as soon as students have a handful of letter sounds to work with. Solid, well-thought-out programs will usually sequence phonic elements from the simple to more complex. For example, the short vowel sounds are usually introduced first because their sounds are more stable, because when they are placed in a consonant-vowel consonant or vowel consonant pattern, for example, they are almost always making the short vowel sound. Long vowels are introduced later because the patterns of consonant-vowel consonant final E or vowel-vowel patterns are more complex and involve more letter combinations. Blends and digraphs will usually be introduced after students have a solid working knowledge of the individual consonant sounds. More complex vowel sounds, such as vowel plus R and diphthongs, are also introduced later. Certain phonic morphological elements, such as the inflected endings of S, ES, ED, and ING, are introduced as the program progresses. When blending sounds, sometimes it becomes difficult for children to hang on to all of the sounds. If this poses a problem, have them blend and say the first two sounds together. Then add the third sound. Now say this new blended chunk. Then add the next sound and say the new blended chunk of 4 sounds, etc. This method of front-end blending can be very helpful. I guess you have the answer to this question if you successfully read this. The key is that you are a fluent, proficient reader. If any of these words were handed to an early reader to decode, they would attempt to decode them letter by letter, or look for any promising letter sequences that might help them figure out the word. Decoding by analogy is a very efficient way for young readers to use their accumulating knowledge of letter sequences or patterns. It is ideal for students who are in Stage 2, as proposed by Dr. Jean Chall in the stages of reading development that you read in an earlier module, and Gunning on page 173 in your text refers to this as the consolidated alphabetic stage, or within-word pattern stage. At this stage, children are beginning to detect patterns within words and to chunk letters together into common spelling sequences. So bat is no longer decoded letter by letter as b-at, but is now streamlined to b-at. In the words night, the student recognizes the IGHT pattern and decodes the word as n-ite. Students can also use the same analogy principle to spell words. If night is N-I-G-H-T, then I can spell bright with B-R-I-G-H-T. We discussed onsets and rhymes previously in relation to phonemic awareness. Now that same terminology is coming up with phonics as well, only now it's connected to print. Teaching word families builds on children's knowledge of how to make rhyming words, something that most children are competent with by the time phonics is introduced. Children soon learn that by substituting new letters or onsets in front of a rhyme, they can generate a multitude of new words. This is an important skill for decoding and for encoding purposes. These word families or rhymes are the most common ones and therefore are very powerful. Once learned, students can decode and encode or spell nearly 500 words with these patterns alone. This number increases substantially when common endings such as s, es, ed, ing, and er are added to the newly made words. These rhymes are a gold mine on any primary grade word wall. So, for example, if the word black is on the classroom word wall, once children know how to access the rhyme or phonogram, ack, they can use that to decode and spell any words with that pattern, such as tack, shack, rack, track, stack, etc. It is very powerful to color code rhymes that appear in word wall words. In this case, the ACK might be highlighted or color-coded in another color, so it is easily accessed by children for decoding and spelling by analogy. In word building or word work activities, students manipulate letters from a base to form new words. Words can be built by changing the first letter or onset, ending letters, or rhymes and medial vowels. The purpose is for children to explore sounds by manipulating and working with letter sounds to discover that when letter sounds are sequenced differently or changed, new words with new meaning are formed. Children might often use letter tiles or letter cards as part of this hands-on activity. Word ladders, which are described in the handout, Making Words and Word Ladder Modifications, explains this in greater detail with samples. Making Words is a word work activity developed by Patricia Cunningham. Students begin with the letters from a word arranged in a random order. The teacher systematically directs them as they make 2-letter words and 3-letter words and 4-letter words, etc., until the final target or mystery word is revealed. This is very similar to the famous holiday activity where children brainstorm all the words they can make out of the word Thanksgiving, only in this case, certain patterns are explored as the teacher gives them clues to making specific words with the given letters. A more detailed description of how to make and conduct one of these activities is in the Cunningham Making Words chapter. Word sorts are another powerful tool that encourages children to analyze words. Children are given an assortment of words that have a variety of patterns that have been studied or are being studied. The teacher might ask them to sort the cards or words into categories, such as all the short A words versus all the long A words, etc. When parameters are given for this sort, it is considered a closed sort. Students can also be asked to do an open sort. Here they group words according to the patterns they detect instead. They might decide to sort words as base words versus words with endings, or words that have blends, digraphs, and single consonant words. In place of word cards, the words can be typed in boxes on a table or chart, copied, and distributed. Students then cut apart the boxed words, sort them, and paste them on a larger sheet of paper into categories. They label each category and then draw mini picks for each word when possible. Another version is to give each child an empty table or chart and a list of words, and they copy or write the words into columns or groups on the table or chart. Look at the words on this slide. Think of a number of ways that these words could be sorted. Chunkered webs are also a great way to help students make associations between other words with the same letter sequences. Students segment or break a word into parts, then brainstorm other words containing that part and write them on the web. They can also add mini pictures when possible to the words they've added. We are in the final stretch, just one more part to go.